Huge fan of the brand. Love what you stand for. Love how it works. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I think your podcast and everything that you're doing is amazing around data science and really bringing the importance of data to the forefront at a global level.
I appreciate that. I think, and if I take it one step higher, I'm just happy we're meeting and hanging out with data enthusiasts. It's been lonely. It's been tough. And we started this podcast just to break up the loneliness. And it's just good to meet people.
For sure. I'm not sure I fit the normal profile of the data scientist that's on your show, but...
Well, if you're empathetic and you're authentic, we can hang out. That's about it. I think for me, I love when our guests and myself get to meet the human side of our guests before we get into some of the data thinking philosophies. I mean, we're spending a lot of time on data security, data governance at the board level, data governance and data security, data privacy, as new CEOs take the reins of the new generation and building these new companies. But I think it's always good to figure out, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? You're a protection officer. Who are you going to tell us who you are? Or you can't. Give us your story, and how the heck did you survive last year?
Yeah, so actually 2020 was a break for me. That might sound compared to what other people went through, but 2019 was a really tough year for me, personally and professionally. So yeah, my mom got sick in early 2019, which was a whole life change for me. She looked after my son when I was working, allowed me to become the leader that I am around privacy and security, to do the hours, and was a huge support. So that rocked my world. It meant that I was juggling childcare, trying to keep down my job, keeping everything in tow, my friends and my relationships, everything going, and it was very draining. And so towards the end of 2019, I got an amazing opportunity to join OneLogin. And really, the drain became the radiators. People and companies are what I call like radiators. You want to be surrounded by the warmth and the glow. So I came on to OneLogin at the end of 2019, leading their privacy, trust and security operations out in EMEA, working with Vanessa Pegros again and some of the other C-suite like Brad Brooks and Rick Barr. So that was amazing for me. I was working from home full time, which allowed me the time I needed to take care of my son, do my job and look after my mother just before COVID hit, which meant that the restrictions in place, we really had to restrict our movements around all of that. So 2020 was different for me. It was like a break. The restrictions reduced my movements around sporting activities for my son, running around all the time, and just really allowed me focus on what was important, my family, and doing my job.
Thank you for sharing that. We started this podcast to give hugs, and boy, we're giving you a virtual hug. Tough stuff. Really tough stuff.
But I am delighted to say that my mom's health is good right now. Good. And she's getting the treatment she needs. So it's great to see that I'm able to smile at the end of it all.
It's something I've talked about before. I am living my best self right now in this weird time. I'm not going out to dinners. I'm not living the best nightlife self. But I just believe that I too have been able to take this time and reflect. And it sounds like you're living your best self, and with around a company that's letting you also be that person with all the work from home. It's nice. A lot there. I'm a fan of the brand. I'm a fan of what your beliefs are and your mission. I know we're going to be talking about, data governance, or I like to talk about data governance and how it's a talking point at the board level and the C-suite. When you were being recruited for the job, how much of that was in the interview, or what you were like, if I take this role, I want to have a voice here? Like, so these are important topics. I just want to know, like, what was it like to be recruited in to know that this really can happen? So if you can walk us through that, that's just really a fascinating story.
So if you look at OneLogin, we have a security first value around data. Data, trust and security reports directly into our CEO. It starts there. So that was the first, oh my God, that's amazing. I knew Brad and Vanessa both from DocuSign. So
Yep.
I knew what they were about. I knew their values, and I know their appetite to secure and protect data. So they're all givens. I knew the commitment was there from the ELT team around what we needed to do to drive the business forward around these times with identity and access management. So we've a lot of data transformation programs going on around the globe for many different industries. That's even before COVID times.
Mm-hmm.
So streamlining access and securing it are key components to that. So it was like the business mission was there for us to excel and succeed.
It's such a timely conversation. And when I look at places that are winning and just, critical during COVID, you look at the health system, you look at banking, you look at finance. Now everybody's working from home. You have kids that are probably children that are using your work computer to log in to their school. There is a lot of things that we can't control. I think you're sitting right at that spot where one day you're working in the office, now everyone's working remote. Now everyone is trying to use their computers. How are you trying to give a best practice? How are you trying to ensure everyone stays and understands the importance of privacy when you're going on to all these different sites from home and mixing school and work?
Yeah, so if you look at it, the requirement is to be able to provide access in a secure fashion. Firstly, recognize that when people work in their offices, they have a certain level of security for their afforded to them by being on site. Security are there, present, and also the systems and the data is secured. When you start to work remotely, all that is removed. So it really starts with your end users, keeping them aware and conscious of the various different security threats out there. Next, you look at what do they need to get access to? So their devices and the systems, and streamlining the access. So making it easy for the end user. Then on what they need to get access to and how the access is provided. So multi-factor authentication brings the layer of security to the systems and the data, where it's not just relying on a password, it's providing something else like a biometrics component or a token. Next then, for us to all work remotely, communications and collaboration tooling are critical. But unfortunately, they're the main vector for malicious attackers or cyber crime to take part on, phishing. So it's making sure that your communications tooling is also subject to two-factor authentication. Not just your email, but your instant messaging and how you're doing your work. Is it via Microsoft Teams, or is it via Google Suite, Google Drives, documents?
So now, is a positive outcome of this pandemic where, it wasn't that long ago. I remember, March, April, everyone's working from home, and it was like the biggest test on VPNs. Like, can this work? We have a new generation of kids doing Zoom in school, enjoying school from home. Some college students. Do you think this has now helped the awareness about data protection and data governance, this whole new way of working and communicating? Or do you still think you are the adult advocating and the children still are not there yet? Like, where do you think this is going?
That's a great question. So last summer, with the as a result of the lockdown, a lot of summer camps were closed.
Okay.
And what we did see, we saw an increase in females taking up cybersecurity and coding online camps. So that's been definitely an increase, and it's great to see diversity and young females wanting and selecting a career in coding and cybersecurity. On the other side, from a working best practice perspective, I think a lot of companies were hoping, they go quarter to quarter thinking everything is going to get back to normal. And then towards the end of the year, it wasn't. So then they realized, oh my God, we've been living with the risk around how the data is being accessed, taken out of systems. It's now put on collaboration tools. Access control mechanism is no longer there. We can no longer deal with the risk. We're going to have to start investing in identity and access management. And I think that's really what we've seen, a big demand for identity and access management expertise, but also platforms like OneLogin to support them meeting the work from anywhere need. And that's
I can't go back. Yeah, I can't go back. I put me into your funnel for work from anywhere needs. What I was delighted to see, again, I read the headline, some of the article, didn't read the whole article, but Google employees are saying, no, I know you want us back in the office, we're not coming back. So I really think there is this big shift. You can't forget this life. I want to get back to the office on my, not every day and be there, but I'm living my best self. So I think you are a major winner. This pandemic has made some winners and some losers, but I think security is a winner, and OneLogin security is a top right winner.
That's great to hear, and we definitely are seeing it from for all industries around the globe.
Yep.
A demand for the skill set, demand for the product offering, and really what I really think is the differentiator is where we're building our product from a risk management perspective, which leads into the whole use of data. So what are the actions that prevent a risk materializing? What are the key actions employees take, and how do we protect them from that? So it's keeping them conscious, and our AI engine certainly does that. So if your IP address changes, or a change in relation to how you're accessing systems and data, it will validate or ask you to validate that it's really you. And I think that's the consciousness that brings home to individuals if they get that check.
I'm going to tell you the one annoying law in the system.
Okay.
I'm going through this right now, and this is kind of a riff and a rant. So I'm part of the exodus from San Francisco, California to Miami, Florida. And I've moved from originally many years ago from New York to San Francisco. Now this is my next tour. I'm in Miami. And when I move to cities, I like now to get a new phone with a new phone number. I'm a local in Florida. I don't like when you're in Florida and you give, hey, we're going for dinner tonight, call me at 212-555, or I like a local number. So now I get a local number. I'm transferring all my contacts, sending out all my contacts. Hey, new phone number. And you probably know where I'm going with this. I didn't realize how many sites have, my cell phone to do. We're going to authenticate you with your cell phone, right? So you get that text message, we're sending it to you. So I just spent like Sunday just going through Google and all these other places, just redoing my auth codes. So your cell phone number, if you want to move it, that two-factor, you just have to think about it. So it's not a pet peeve. It's just an interesting journey, because we're talking about it right now. It's how do you know it's me? And I'm like, oh God, I don't have my phone. Look at the other phone.
Yeah. And I think what you're going to see is a change in acceptance to biometrics more and
Can't
more
wait.
in
Yeah.
the forthcoming years that will reduce that, the need to update the data. But if you're streamlining your identity, therefore, into one place, you should only need to update it the once or the twice.
Yep. Yeah, no, I absolutely, without doubt, and someone who keeps changing passwords and losing passwords, I love the biometrics. It's just like use my finger. Now, I believe I just also checked. You're in Ireland. Is that where you're sitting?
Yeah,
So
I'm Dublin, Ireland.
in Dublin. So you have, you know, a lot of different points of view on data security, data privacy, where you sit versus where I sit.
But we both agree that data is liquid gold.
That I was just gonna say, but I want to remove where we sit. I believe that if I put my data out there on certain systems, all of it, call it Google, my search results will be better. So I'm part of this group of like, I want my searches, I want my data out there to be collected by just trusted, but then it will go to non-trusted. So just where are you as just a human, where are you with your data? Do you like to give out the data so you get a better experience, or are you the other side of like, I don't want anyone having my data? Like, was it hard for you to put your picture on LinkedIn on your profile? Did you think twice about it? Like, so again, these are different human aspects of it. Who are you? Do you like to share? Do you not like to share?
So I'm a security profession by trade. I'm all about protecting. However, transparency and trust. So if you're going to be transparent with me around how you're using my data and the benefits of it, and I understand how you're protecting my data, I'm all for it, because I see the value that it's brought from a financial aspect around financial modeling, but I also see it from the security side, how it protects. The best use cases are in the financial crime, but having access to data can really help us in the fight against cyber crime. So what are the key drivers, or what are the key actions that individuals take before the final risky action? So I think a lot of cases, transparency hasn't been there around how data is used. So
the black boxes,
yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm creeped out at times. I know my phone listens to me. Like, I'll have a conversation about flat screen TVs or TVs, and all of a sudden I'll get news feeds about TVs, or I'm sure my phone is going to send me travel tips for Ireland. Or it's creepy, but I like it, because it's creepy, but it's right more than it's wrong. And if it wasn't so accurate, I would probably be creeped out, but it's so fine tuned. And I think I kind of want to make a kind of a connect a dot here. So we have a new generation of startup leaders that grew up with phones, that grew up with this. I know we've talked about data protection at the boardroom level, at the CEO level. I know this might maybe be obvious for some, but I just still want to ask the question. Data protection with the product team, at product design. That I believe also, because if you're not trusted, they're not giving you information. So I also think you sit at an interesting place at both in a product conversation, as well as, the strategic company conversation. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on, I know we want to talk about it at the board level, but what else about the product level, about all these companies starting and designing new products?
Yeah, so the very first thing I ask the question is, what is the business purpose for the data?
Okay.
Then it's like, so what are you trying to do from a product offering perspective? Why do you need the data? And then it's being transparent about getting the consent, and then looking at all the aspects around how you're going to manage the data. Data integrity is critical. Keeping the data accurate and complete, and how that will help you drive your business forward from a customer, but your organizational perspective. And I think from a design perspective, looking at the data as a holistic, like liquid gold, it's not really there. Initially companies get their products up and going, but then they have to re-architect them to make changes, and that can be very difficult, and it's all down to how the data is collected, processed and stored. And it can often slow down businesses if it's not thought about from a strategic perspective at the start.
I've seen that a lot mentoring startups where the startups are like, yeah, all you have to do is just give us access to your data and I could do this, this, and this. I'm like, yeah, that one sentence, just not sure they're going to give you their data. Like, no, but if you give us the data, this is what we do. I'm like, again, you're making this claim that they're going to give you a data set. I don't know. Yeah. And I think you're right. In the product design phase, it's almost like I would bring you into the whiteboard session, even the virtual whiteboard session, and I would just want to know all the barriers on why we're not going to get the deal done. When you're like, well, right, and then,
or the markets that you're going to have challenges operating in geographically from the different privacy side, and these again aren't often thought about, but they will impact your business as you move forward into national markets.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And then it just gets bubbled up to the CEO for multiple reasons. One, why isn't the product selling? So the CEO knows that we have a sales pipeline issue, right? Data, and then just good data governance on like, how do we miss this? It's tough.
Yeah, and it's hard because companies, when they're trying to get off the ground, they can't really afford a privacy or a security expertise. So what tends to happen is they do what's a pen test of the product and say that it's up and running from a security side, a cybersecurity threat side, but they haven't factored in all the items around the data management, the data integrity, the confidentiality, the availability. So, yeah.
I've been on calls with startups when I ask that question, again, part of a lot of these accelerators, and I would say, Allison, tell us about your you're doing security and your path to get your certifications. Oh, and their answer is, my friend's a hacker. He won like 3 hack events and he's been doing it. I'm like, no Fortune 500, 100 company is going to give you a check because your friend who's a hacker solved the problem. I'm like, it's expensive, but you're right. That's like, I wish that we can get to a place where these tests are expensive. They're important, but they're expensive. And that's why I think a lot of these startups are like, yeah, my friend who's a hacker. Do you see that? I know you're probably, your skin is like itching when you hear that, but that's like what we see.
Yeah, it's everywhere for all startups. As I said, they're not thinking of it from a data perspective. The other side of it is, I'm very old school. I'm 22 years in the industry. I was the youngest female to qualify in security in Ireland. So I'm old school in the fact that the 10 domains, I understand data, all aspects. Anyone coming out of college now, and this is why I lecture and I sit on the FIT board, is they understand security from a technical side. So somebody that understands it from a compliance, privacy side are few and far between. And particularly for smaller startup organizations, that's the skill set that they need.
Yeah.
And all those people are retired. They're hard to at a global level. So yeah, I think that's the difference. The other thing is, knowing your expertise and partnering. So like OneLogin is an ideal partner for startups or small organizations around identity and access management, building the product into their product offering, provides them with the security skill set around identity, managing the access to their product offering, takes pressure off as well from a security operations perspective.
And there's a lot here, because I think if through your journey, which economist down to, going from economist to data security. I think the Economist Plus is the ultimate amplifier. Economist Plus being a data scientist. Economist Plus is something that it's the way the economists think. What I was saying is, Niamh, you have an incredible background with a foundation in being an economist. And I always believe that an Economist Plus is just the amplifier. So Economist Plus data scientist, Economist Plus cybersecurity, Economist Plus. The thinking that economist has is something I'm always been jealous of, just the thinking. So when you map out this career, talking maybe to future women in tech, women in STEM, might not have the path to tech. Any advice that you can talk about for women, like you've said, like with the pandemic, more women are coding, but what advice would you give other women?
So there is a huge opportunity for other women, for everybody in this space. It's really understanding the risk of data and doing it from a qualitative, quantitative perspective. And as soon as you understand that and you're able to apply that, you can take any career path within the industry. So you could be a pen tester, you could be a training and awareness individual, you could do risk assessments, you could do product design, because you understand the drivers around data for the market and the industry. In all businesses, data is needed to make decisions. So if you understand the risks associated with the industry that you're operating, the markets that you're operating in, and you apply that risk management framework to it, you're onto a winner. Because people can relate. That's how people relate. They understand money, they understand operations, they understand business, how to drive businesses forward.
You just made it not as scary. Right. So again, it's the word data privacy, data security. It sounds scary, but if you just talk to it as a straight business, as a deliverable, versus you don't need to be a mad scientist to figure this out. You need to be curious. You need to be thoughtful. But there are some core capabilities that women who are looking at what they want to be, this is something that they should put a spotlight on.
For sure, 100%. It's just talking to the impacts and the consequences that in a language that everyone can understand.
Yeah, it's like we've all received emails of, oh, my Facebook has been hacked, don't accept this email. Oh, someone's sending this email, don't accept it. So it doesn't matter what age you are, male, female, everyone can relate to that moment. And that moment is when, you're right, we want to have, future leaders think about, wow, I could be in this space and make a difference.
For sure. And there's a huge demand for the skill set from a privacy, compliance, security perspective.
Right. And when you get called to meet a customer, or when you're in a room, is it still a male-dominated room? Are there still very few females in that leadership spot, or is it starting to really have a nice feel of diversity?
That's a great question. It varies from industry and geography, for sure. Yeah.
What I like.
Very few women that I see at the advisory role, very few women at the C-suite. So, yeah.
You're waving a flag. Yeah, you are waving there's a lot. I mean, it's not only you waving the flag for the brand, but you're waving the flag in a good way for like a next generation. I mean, this, as you said, data protection over the years have changed, but they're still chasing to get your identity, and they're still chasing to get your bank account. Maybe the tools are different, but is that kind of an accurate statement on?
That is completely accurate. Yeah, it's the tools have changed, the technology has changed, but it's still the same data that they're looking for.
Yeah, The tools and
Yeah.
tech have changed. I do not have plans to come to Ireland, but if you have plans to come up to the Americas and see your team or other team and friends, let's keep in touch and try to get together. It'd be nice to grab a drink in person.
Sure. And if 100%, and I'd love to connect you to more people here in Ireland and EMEA that would really love to do podcasts with you.
Yep.
And yeah, if you feel that there's startups that could do with my expertise, I'd be more than happy.